Good morning, Robert A. Kalka Metropolitan Skyport Executive Team. We are Finals 9 and we are proud and excited to announce the results of our recent penetration test on your network. This is a retest of our Q4 2023 engagement, and our goal is to evaluate the things you did correct in your network and improvements you've made in these past few months, as well as things that still need work and how they affect your bottom line. So to introduce the team briefly, I am the assistant manager. Zach here is the manager. Harrison is our network analyst. Colton is our reconnaissance analyst, and they were in charge of the social engineering engagement you requested. Noah is our cloud analyst and took charge on the AWS environment. And then Matthew is our systems analyst.
So to begin, I want to reiterate, we are very proud and excited to be back here retesting your network. To begin the day, we're going to go over a brief summary of the engagement. Then we're going to move on to the findings that we found, broken down by various industry standards of the severity. We are also going to go over the fixes that you have made in the network compared to our previous engagement. We're going to move on to the financial and reputational impacts that some of our findings could have on your network and business. And finally, we're going to end the day by going over the remediations and policy changes you can implement to help improve the security of your network. So, when going into this penetration test, we wanted to primarily ensure the security of your customer and employee data. We also wanted to go through and reevaluate the vulnerabilities we found in our previous engagement and see what was patched and what still remains to be an issue. And we also wanted to identify the key strengths and weaknesses that your security posture has.
So now we'll go over a high-level overview of the vulnerabilities we found. So in total, we found 48 vulnerabilities, 47 of which are technical, and one being the social engineering aspect. So if you see in the graph behind me, the majority of them lie in the high and medium category based on industry standard ratings. 7 of which are critical, and 7 are also low or informational. We also have a pie chart on the left dictating the percentage of remediations, unfixed, fixed, and also new vulnerabilities. So we have a good even spread of a third all around. So categorically, Windows has the most vulnerabilities due to its complexity and interconnected nature. 11 of which are Linux-based, mostly or all are in the web application or database focus. And you guys did a very good job of hardening the Linux servers because we could not get in. And 5 of which are cloud, and Harrison will now talk about that.
Ready, so I'm going to speak a bit to our findings from the test that we performed on the AWS cloud environment. So we primarily focused on 3 applications that we found. There was a map application, a form for generating boarding passes, and a form for internal tool requisitions. We found that all 3 of these endpoints were publicly accessible, so anyone on the internet could interact with these, generate boarding passes, order tools. Second, we found there was a policy misconfiguration that allows any user in the environment to gain privileged access. So any user that has an account in the cloud, this could be anyone from an intern in the company all the way up to manager or C-suite, they would be able to assume the permissions that the development team has who works on these applications, which is an exposure of customer data and other risks to the environment. Next, we found that the tool requisition form allows users to submit arbitrarily large requests. It does attempt to validate the number and restrict you to ordering only 5, but we found that you could bypass this easily. So this means that anybody on the internet could access this form and try to order, for instance, 1 million anvils. If these aren't properly audited, it could lead to a massive loss of revenue or a waste of time for whoever is auditing and authorizing these requests. And finally, we found a critical exposure of PII data in a misconfigured storage in the cloud. And this was a result of the boarding pass application. The storage where the boarding passes are stored is publicly accessible, and it is easy to find the passes with no authentication, just access from the internet. We were able to retrieve the full name and social security number of 150 customers. which is a big issue for compliance, as we'll talk about shortly.
Okay, and I'm here to talk to you guys about what you probably care most, how these findings directly impact your business. A lot of how they directly impact your business is going to be with compliance. We have a lot of different regulating bodies out there that pass different legislation, either privately or through the government. The number one of which I'm sure you're familiar with is PCI DSS. This is the gold standard in credit card usage. As we're going forward to online forms of payments, everybody's buying their boarding passes, their airplane tickets, they're all doing it through credit cards, so it's important to be compliant with these various standards. GDPR and TCPA are also two very good standards that are recognized everywhere. If a California or European citizen is at RIKMS airport, you guys are going to have to be compliant to those laws and legislations. The other thing that's really important that we thought to bring up is the TSA Emergency Amendment. This is brand new as of last year, 2023. It's a new policy directed by the TSA for how airports should handle their cybersecurity functions internally and externally. So to talk a little bit more about this, if you guys are compliant with this now, it's going to protect you from a lot of future policy changes later on as the government and different bodies pass new forms of regulations and controls. It's going to cover you guys from federal prosecution. You will limit your liability in that. Also loss of contracts. For the FAA and FCC fail to find you guys in compliant with some of these controls, you possibly could lose business or authorization to do regular airport functions. The other thing that we want to mention is that in our report, we were able to map our technical findings to a lot of these controls and things that we found in these new policies. Oh, and the other thing we want to briefly mention is we ran a lot of historical data breaches and were able to arrive at about $22 million if there were to be a critical breach of PII data and prosecution fines. This is largely based upon historical GDPR and CCPA incidents.
So now that we've discussed some of the findings from your environment, we're going to sort of talk about what you guys can do quickly and cheaply to get yourself into a much better state. We have three big notes of things that need to be fixed quickly and in most cases without any extra equipment. Network segmentation was one of the biggest findings from the test. We were able, from the guest network, where, say, a customer at the airport is able to talk to the air traffic control, any of your corporate machines, and essentially just there's no separation there. There has been a large improvement from the last test. You have properly segmented off your vendor network, which meant that we had to target someone in the vendors with a phishing attack, which you requested, to get into that network at all. Another thing is improving your access policies. A lot of our ability to move throughout your environment has been from people who probably don't need access to certain things having a lot of access. As Harrison talked about earlier, in the current state, an intern could get onto your AWS and become essentially the same as a full-blown senior developer and access anything. We are also able to use guest accounts to dump passwords and other similar things. The last thing, and this is a big improvement from last time, is your software patches and antivirus. So last time we were able to get a lot of our initial access through out-of-date systems which we were able to exploit to get shells on things. Since then, y'all have cleaned up most of your exploitable vulnerabilities. We were not able to get any sort of access through exploiting any of your servers or anything like that. A big change that could improve your security standing in the future, and also something that would have slowed us down in the environment, is enabling the antivirus on your machines. In the current state, they already have Windows Defender installed. It just needs to be enabled. If that had been enabled, we wouldn't have been able to drop our tools onto different machines. We would have had to spend a lot more time trying to find ways around it, and that would do so much to stop either A, us testers, or B, an actual threat actor in your environment. So those are the main points. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, so thank you. Really solid job. What I'm curious of is we worry a lot about relative risk here as well as residual risk. And so it sounds like these are the things that you would say are